Hi, welcome back to Vulnerability Let's Talk. Today's topic is sex, coming of age, and things that I wish that I would have been told. I was going to say at first things I wish my parents would have told me, but I just feel like this is knowledge where I felt like I wish I would have been told a lot of different things from a lot of different areas in my life. This topic is kind of sensitive for me, I will honestly say, but it's been placed on my heart for a really long time. I kind of felt nervous about telling it, but because I take this live as a responsibility to, and I say the same thing every time, to offer healing, to offer clarity, to offer direction, to offer a sense of freedom for myself and for others who are watching. And so my name is Dr. Ayisha Zakia Jefferson. I have three amazing people. As usual, I have Joshua Moore, who is, I'm going to let Joshua introduce himself because he is fabulous. I also have Yolanda Stone, and I have Tameka Renee again. So these wonderful people will give you some beautiful insight to their journeys, also of coming of age. I say this a lot, but we don't come from necessarily a professional perspective. We come from life experiences. And so if our life experiences, you consider us experts in that area, then that will be okay. But hopefully you can see yourself in one of us to help you through your beautiful healing journey. And so I already see that Tameka is on. I think Yolanda is here, and I do see Josh as well. So just give me a minute so that I can bring them on in. You and Tameka, I just invited you. Um, I will also say too that I chose this topic. Hey, beautiful people. I chose this topic too because I am a professor. I work with a lot of young people, and there are some areas where, specifically in this area, like I said, I have my students write journals a lot, and this is a topic that really does come up often when they do their own personal self-reflection when it comes to sex. And so I have nieces and nephews, and this topic has come up as well with them. And so I feel like if there's any way that I can give, personal insight, helping parents give insight, and just like a village as a whole, because even though I haven't birthed my own children, I am a part of many villages. And so I try to share my journey as much as I can with pure, authentic honesty too. So I feel that these beautiful people will do the same. For whatever reason, God, I won't even say for whatever reason, I know exactly why God led me to each of them to share their own personal journeys in their own individual way. So none of these people are first-time people. And so Josh, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
All right. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Joshua. I do a little bit of a lot. I'm a band director. I'm a life coach. I make shea butter. And I own a lawn company and handyman.
Okay.
So a little bit of a lot.
Do you want to share where you're a band director?
At Morehouse.
At Morehouse, yes. I think that's important, at the illustrious Morehouse. I think that is super awesome. Yeah. And Josh's shea butter, so I'm going to have you give your information at the end, but it's awesome. I just came back from a trip and I carry it everywhere. So it is really awesome. It smells good. I have confidence because of it. And then, of course, we have Tameka. Do you want to introduce yourself? Or I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
Hey everybody, I'm Tameka Renee. I am originally, I didn't say that the last time, but I'm originally from the Bronx, New York, and I live on the outskirts of Charlotte, North Carolina, and I've been here since this year will make 28 years. But I'm a minister, and I'm also a spiritual coach. I also counsel people. And like I said last week, I just try to impact women to be the best that they can possibly be, to be who they were called to be when they came here to this earth. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Minister and Coach Tameka. And then we have my sunshine, Miss Yolanda Stone. can you introduce yourself? You are our beautiful recurring, I might as well say co-host,
Right.
but go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yolanda Stone. I currently work for the federal government. I do contracting for the federal government. I am a serial entrepreneur, co-own a mental health business. I am jumping into the real estate realm now. Mom, mother,
Yes,
and a little bit of
so
everything.
much. So we're going to jump into the topic again. I'm going to repeat. The topic is sex, coming of age, things I wish I would have been told. So my first question is, because really my target here is trying to really reach young people on this one, or parents of young people, village members of young people, and some of us need a reset too, to also remember talking about this journey. So this might be for middle age and our elders as well, who are intentionally seeking freedom as well. So the first question I want to ask is, do you think that there is a right age to have sex?
Now, at my age, at my tender age, I don't feel like it's a right age. Maybe it's a range. So based off what I know now and my experience, I would have waited probably until I was probably maybe like 21. I don't know why, just arbitrary number. But I would have waited until I was more mature to handle the responsibility of sex and the attachments that come with sex, the extra drama and the headaches. So yeah, I probably would have waited until I was probably around 21.
All right. Josh or Tameka? And again, this is personal opinion. Strictly.
I agree with what Yolanda said about the range. I like the range, not necessarily a specific age. Because when we think of specific ages, sometimes we just attach it with judgment. Like, oh, no, you were too young. Or, dang, you were too old. So I do like the range.
Okay.
But now, to me, probably should be like, 20 to 30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 20 to 30s. All right. How about you, Tameka?
I don't necessarily know that there's a certain age, but there should be a great deal of maturity attached to when you should start, because of, like what Yolanda said, the responsibilities that come with it, certain soul ties that you get that you may not be able to get rid of on your own. I think it should definitely be taught better than what maybe I had, because thinking about this topic, I'm just being real transparent. Like maybe about an hour ago when I started preparing myself to get on, to physically get on, meaning not mentally, but I started thinking about other cultures who girls are raised to know what their responsibilities are. I don't see that a lot and hear of it a lot. And I'm in the American culture, and definitely not in the African American culture the way that I was brought up. So I would say it's about the maturity level, if you can handle what you're about, the act that you're about to perform in.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, as always, ditto to what has been said. But the first thing that I was thinking about was the maturity level and sexual understanding. So that's tying into what you guys already said. And also an understanding of, a personal understanding of yourself, too. Having a certain level of awareness. That would be something that I would add on to that conversation, because there was based off of when I started having sex to, later on, there's been a certain level of understanding. Even now, I have a different understanding, a certain level of understanding than I had like when I was in my 20s and my 30s. So that self-awareness, I think, is really key too.
Yeah.
So if you are okay with it, no pressure, what age did you start having sex? And for whatever reason, this was the scary part for me. But how old were you?
I'll go. So like I was saying a little bit ago, my transparency, because I was afraid to share. And the reason why I was afraid to share was because of not necessarily the judgment, but the spiritual attachment that will come with the judgment because of the fighting the warfare. And then I got this calmness because what came over me was, if someone takes what I say and use it to try to hurt me, then they'll get their karmic repay. So that's what gave me the peace about it. I was 15. I was in high school. I think I was about a sophomore in high school. And I had a gentleman that came from a very good family who I really, when I thought about it today, because it's been years since I've thought about him in this way, we thought we were in love. Well, actually, I would say we were, because, people say, oh, that's just puppy love. We were. But once my mom found out, she did some horrible, horrible, horrible things to tear us apart. His mother let me say that, she is so down to earth, so loving, so kind, that I guess she maybe felt like I was coming from a home that would not tell me. And she was a teenage mom when she had him, if I'm not mistaken. So she told me I could always talk to her, but I didn't have enough trust in the relationship because my mom was so authoritative and so powerful in a negative way that I did not want to go outside to seek help anywhere else. So when his mother found out, she said, didn't I tell you to come and talk to me? Didn't I tell you to come and talk to me? So the experience was horrific because my mom she never told me. It was just always don't. So I didn't have anybody to talk to about it other than my peers. And that was it. And going back, looking at it, I don't really have any regrets because he's a really great guy. The challenges that I came up with was that my mom, she got on the telephone. We lived in New York, and she got on the telephone, and my dad's side of the family that lives here in the South in Charlotte. And she called my aunts and she called my dad, who at that time I did not know at the time, but he was terminally ill on his deathbed, and told him. And,
Oh, wow.
and her anger lashing out, and he talked to me in such a calming and respectful and loving way, just saying, I know that there's certain desires and things that you have, but try to wait, and then I have an aunt who they were asking, being nosy, being facetious, being ugly, and the one aunt went and lied and told my mother because they wanted to know where we did it, and I wouldn't tell them. But it definitely wasn't at my mom's house. And my aunt told my mom, she lied and told my aunt that I said, we did it right there in the house in her bedroom. So of course that came with a lot of, so my experience wasn't traumatic. The reactions were traumatic afterwards.
Right.
So that's where the regret came in, to make me feel like I was shamed and all that. So yeah.
I did. You kind of jumped ahead on the questions, my dear. But I do.
I'm sorry.
I do appreciate it. It came out the way that I was supposed to, but just know that you might have to repeat what you said just to kind of go on. Might be overlapping just a little bit. But I do appreciate you sharing that because, like I said, all of our journeys and experiences are different. So thank you for that. Josh, you didn't answer, right?
I was saying I was 16.
You were 16. Wow. Okay. All right. And we're gonna have some.
I gotta lean in because I honestly don't remember. So it was I don't know the exact age. It was between 14 and 15. I do know I was not driving, but I was driving when I was not supposed to be driving. So it was between that age frame. Because in the country, you can drive. Nobody's really checking for you. So it was a thing in the country. So around 14,
wow.
15.
All right. So we have 14, 15, and 16. So about that age. Mm-hmm. I was 13. And I think I might have mentioned that in the last live. And I was very ashamed of that age for a very long time, of that being my starting age. I I will say that I was ashamed of that starting age because I was considered to be a good girl at that time. I know I said that for sure. And I was like the straight A student. I was the one that the family looked to be like the innocent, pure one. And I had a 16-year-old boyfriend at the time, and that 16-year-old boyfriend laid his hands on me. And he awakened a lot of stuff at that time. And so I guess I just went with the flow. And I, I'll lead into the next question. I don't want to go too far into it, but I am clear about saying, like, given the background, because a lot of times girls who start out, the way that I've heard it, girls who start out having sex young, there is like a stigma or a stereotype that's attached to them. And I know, I'm not even going to say I know that I was not a part of many of those stereotypes and stigmas. That was the boyfriend, the only person that I was with at that time. I wasn't thinking about anybody else. I didn't feel like I was fast. I wasn't wilding out or anything like that. I was still studious. Nobody even knew what I was doing. But yeah, it was happening, at that age. So I just wanted to make that very clear, because I do feel like, I just know things that I've heard around me, and I don't want that to be, a young lady or a young man's experience. At that time, I did feel like whatever I knew about love, I did feel like I was in love with him, which is the reason why I felt like I was to give myself to him at that time. Plus, I had older cousins too, who I was one of the younger cousins. So I've always had an old soul. And so older people allowed me to hang around with them. And this is like, anywhere from 16 to 22. And so they were talking about it all the time, talking about how great it was and getting it in and all this kind of stuff. So there probably was a sense of curiosity with me too. When I, in hindsight, when I'm thinking about it, that I feel like maybe hearing their stories, perhaps it gave me permission to say that it was okay to do it. So I didn't want to jump into the next area. If you feel comfortable, what do you feel like those initial experiences were like, being that young, having sex? First of all, was it someone dear to you? Tameka said it was somebody she was in love with. It for me, it was somebody that I felt like I was in love with. He was also a family friend, one of my mom's friend's sons. And so yeah, what was the experience like for you? Anybody want to share those first experiences?
I'll share. Mine was a good experience. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, the guy he was a year older than I was, but of course he was more advanced than I was. And I when I listened to some of the stories of some of my friends, theirs was horrible because it was painful. It was this, it was that. I mean, he was the perfect gentleman. That's all that I remembered him to be. And that made me, of course, love him even the more, because you had me thinking when you gave me the topic before I even got the questions. You had me to think about what this was like for me personally. So this was, again, my personal experience, regardless of what people say. The only thing was I wasn't familiar with my body, and he wasn't that sexually advanced to teach me how to. Jonathan is a comedian. I'm sorry, I can't look at the comments, but he wasn't that advanced to teach me to know my body, because we weren't taught back then like we are today. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have all that. We just knew what our friends told us. But when I look back on from what I know today, and then okay, are we going to get real transparent here, real raw? The only difference was, and I'll just say it, you know, because we were two young teenagers exploring each other's bodies, I did not even know that I was supposed to have an orgasm. Mm-hmm. So I did not have an orgasm until I was 18. Mm-hmm. So that was 3 years later, but it still was something that I enjoyed with him. Yeah. You know, so yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I also didn't discover orgasms until much later as well. Yeah. So I will share that part after.
You see me fanning because it's getting hot. And honestly and truly, because I'm a spiritual person, as the people would say in church, because I'm not a holy roller, but honestly and truly, I believe Spirit is coming to help me with this so that I can stand. Thank you, Jonathan. He's right. It is my anointing. So it's getting hot. And if you know anything about the anointing, it's not only hot and heavy. So let me just say that. Lord. So when y'all see me fanning, it's because I'm hot, not in a different type of way, but yeah.
Yeah. I got you. Here's Jonathan talking about that was the anointing. Mrs. Lely said, "Greetings, people." So anybody else want to share? Yolanda, Josh, you want to share about the first experience or those initial experience, what it was like for you?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I miss Tameka, 18 years old.
It took a long time because we didn't know.
Wow, okay. That was a problem.
Oh, okay.
I mean, when 18 is young, right? I didn't find that out until probably like 40. Like, so I'm late. I'm like late in the game. So, for me, I thought I was having sex at first. We didn't know what we were doing. I wasn't having sex. I didn't realize it had to go in the hole like the first thing. Yeah, so I think it was like humping. So, it really wasn't that. And I'm going to be honest. I was that little girl because I grew up with two older brothers. People would look at different things. My aunt had sex tapes, right? Porn. I mean, people know what porn is. So I would take tapes at an early age, and I was looking at porn at an early age. So, like, when it happened, I'm thinking that I'm supposed to do what I saw in pornos, which to make all these noises and everything. And nothing's really going on. So it took a minute to get that rhythm kind of going. But it just, for me, it was not love. It was, you know, I liked him, but I didn't know what love was at that time. But it was something that I was trying to do in the porno and feel good and have a good time. And for me, it was, and then maybe he'll like me. So that's kind of how I fell into that.
I thought I was the only one watching. Well, it was for me. It wasn't pornos. It was real sex that used to creep up on you on HBO.
Oh, I saw
real sex used to come when you wake up in the middle of the night and then you see real sex, and I was like, yeah, you know. So that's what it was for me. And let me kind of take that back before you go, Josh. I'm saying this because I do want parents to realize if they don't, that bodies awaken early. Even though my official sex date was probably like where the actual act happened was 13, I was humping before that. So
yeah,
there was some, and I don't even know how that like occurred, but family, friends, I don't know how we would kind of like creep off and we would hump. But even that was like, it felt good, but for whatever reason, we was hiding doing it. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know how like the discovery happened with that. But even that might have been like 5 to 7 years old. You know what I'm saying? So, and that was really scary for me too, because there was one time that my mom caught me with a family friend and he was getting his hump in. And it's not funny.
We're trying to break the ice here.
We got in trouble. Like we got full whoopings for what was happening. And there was no conversation about why we were getting spanked. We just got spanked because we got caught in this act of humping. And I had witnessed it, you know, like I said, on television, probably somebody in the house waking up in the middle of the night, something like that. So we were doing what felt good to us, but we did get punished. And I mean, when I think about it now in conversations that I've had with like friends and family, when they get on their children, I have to have conversations with them like, well, did you have a conversation? Then I go back, you know, to the child and talk to them, but we'll get back to that later, to let them know that it's a natural occurrence that happens with the body that we don't necessarily understand, but it is a coming of age thing. So Lily said same. Tara, Jonathan said after dark. Tara said I would watch HBO Real Sex too. So yeah, but yeah, I don't want to forward too much in the conversation, but I do want people to know that there are acts that happen before the actual act with children. So Josh, how about you? Do you care to share?
Yeah, I can share.
Okay.
All right, so I actually had a girlfriend, a high school sweetheart. So it was like, she was 1 year older than me, and we were sneaking around, of course. But it was like, but I can't remember. But I was 6. Oh, I remember the day. It was 11/11/11. It was 11/11.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, we know same with y'all. We didn't really know what we were doing, but then kind of figured it out. But I was kind of like, I agree with you, Ayisha. So probably like around 10, 11, 12, 10, 11, my body was definitely waking me up every day. I was seeing all that MTV stuff after dark or VH1, Girls Going Wild.
Yes.
I'm like, what now? I'm over here, wow, 3 in the morning, just up. But yeah, I think that's kind of it for me. With somebody I trusted, somebody I loved, somebody I felt like I really, she's still a family friend. Our families are actually cool and things like that. So, no hate, and it was a good experience. It wasn't nothing bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, I love hearing that from a man, the fact that you had a good experience and it was somebody that you actually had a bond with, because that's not usually like what we traditionally hear. We hear about men and pouncing on, because that's what I was told, like, he's just gonna stick it and he's gonna leave. But that hasn't, other stories that I've heard, that hasn't been like the recurring experience.
For me,
a lot of them I heard were good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I felt like, because I was thinking about it for years, like, it was so, I'm not gonna lie, it was so many people I was like, her, it's gonna be her, it's gonna be her. But it was none of them, but I wasn't, and I'm still working on it with myself, being the most comfortable in my own skin, the comfortable with my body, and being like, this is who I am, this is what I, like, this is you, so that was somebody I trusted to share my body with, and that was a lot. So I wasn't comfortable being, I'm a talker. I can share a lot, but I wasn't necessarily comfortable sharing my body because of what people might have thought. So it was so safe to be in a relationship and to be like, all right, this is somebody I trust, somebody I can, it's not going to be so many eyes in and eyes out, let's say.
Yeah. That getting comfortable with your body is definitely a journey too. So I appreciate all of you sharing that. So again, oh no, he'll be back because we need him. But as I said before, I was 13 and it wasn't a planned situation. I kind of felt like I was cornered into it, even though I loved him. It was a situation that I kind of felt like I kind of had to do to keep him, because he was an older guy. 13 and 16, that's an older guy, at the time.
Yeah.
I was still in middle school. He was in high school. So for whatever reason, I felt like this was something that I was supposed to do at that time, based around who I was with, things I was hearing, things I was seeing on television or whatever. And my experience was not good. I don't remember enjoying it at all. We were actually, I hate to say it, the first time was in a van, and it was somebody's friend van that had some comforts in there, and he was like, let's go for it. And I did it, and it hurt so bad. All I can remember is the pain. And I just kept telling him, wait a minute, just stop. And I remember, and we did like a second try. That time was a little bit better. We were actually at his house in a bed. But I couldn't, I just remember thinking, why do people like this? I didn't understand. I was thinking, because I do remember, like I said, cousins and other people, they always glorified it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel the glory in it. And I was like, is this how it's going to be every time I try to do this? Because he was horny all the time. And rightfully so. He's 16,
Exactly.
you know? So he's got a sense of urgency that he can't control. And he did want to do it all the time. And I would do it to appease him. But it took years for me to enjoy it. There was with him, even though we were in love, I don't ever remember the joy in our experience. And I do understand now, because he was probably learning. He didn't really understand. He wasn't making sure that I was getting taken care of, and I didn't know what it was that I needed. You know what I'm saying? So I just kind of thought that was the way that it was. And so the part that I did enjoy the most was before and after. So I enjoyed us making out, and I enjoyed us hugging after. So the intimacy, that level of intimacy, was the part that the connection, us talking, laughing, laying there naked, all that was the part that I loved. But the actual act was, every time I would like kind of have to brace myself, and I felt like Celie in the bed with Mister. I was just waiting for the paper to dry. I was just waiting for it to be over.
Yeah.
You know, at that age. And so and that, you know, of course, we'll talk more about it. Obviously, later it changed until, you know, that I really did start enjoying it. But it took years for me to enjoy it. Let me see if Josh is back. Hold on just a second. Okay, he's back. All right. Keep coming. Josh, I just said accepted. Okay. All right. So the next question is, do you feel like that first experience, or that those first experiences impacted your trajectory in having sex? And the reason why I'm saying this too is because I remember somebody telling me that like after you have sex with like the first person, you almost compare the rest of your sexual partners with that first sex, like the way they look, maybe the way they smelled, the way they moved, even like body shape, size, different things they may have said and done. So do you feel like that initial experience had an impact on further experiences in your life?
For me, yeah, because
Okay.
I like the person, and I actually love the person, so it was a good experience. So I didn't have anything negative to go against. So it was, yeah. So for me, yeah, in a sense, but I don't always kind of look at that I don't use that as a reference point per se. It was just more of like an eye opener to like, oh, well, what kind of could be. But I still remember though. Yeah. If that makes sense.
So I mean, I didn't have like I said, my experience was a good experience, but I didn't really compare. You know, no, I won't say that because that's not nice. But I don't have any. I didn't compare anybody. I did remember wanting to be loved, and that's what he gave me with the capacity that he could. So if there was any comparison, well, now that I look back on it, I can see that there may have been somebody that I was with that didn't give me that compassion or no, I won't say compassion, that passion and that love that he gave per se. So I guess the answer is, yeah, I guess I was comparing, but not the actual act. but the love that was attached to it, you know.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right.
Uh, so, I think for me with that relationship, I started feeling like I was not enough in that
Mm.
intimate relationship, because he chose another female for whatever the reasons were. So I think that's when I started like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I don't look good enough, or what's wrong with me that he didn't want me and didn't want to choose me. So I think that for me is when a lot of my insecurities started, and I kind of attached sex as an afterthought. It wasn't anything sacred for me. So I didn't value sex. I didn't even value sex until later in life, because I just looked at it as a thing and I never attached
Yeah.
it to love.
Wow. Thank you so much for your honesty in that, and all of you guys. Yeah, ditto to that. I had a mixed experience with this particular guy. Again, now I look at it as him being young, and I also know he had a story too, you know, with his family dynamics. But he cheated on me all the time. He caught his little 16-year-old self. He got caught cheating all the time, but that cheating developed a lot of insecurities with me. So that's why I thank you for your honesty, because the women that he was cheating with, I did not look like them. And so I felt like an afterthought a lot of the times. I did feel like sometimes I would need to have sex with him because of those experiences that I thought he was having with other women. But as far as like that relationship having an impact on me, yes, it definitely developed insecurities, but it toughened me too. And so maybe in the same way that it did for you, Yolanda, because I was determined after that I'm not going to feel like this again, that I'm not going to be treated like this again.
Yep.
You're not going to get me like this. And so that situation at that young of an age kind of like flipped the script with me with men, where I became kind of more like a dominating personality because I wanted to make sure that I did not get hurt. Now, did I understand that that's what I was doing at that age? Not at all. But now when I look back at that experience, I do understand what was happening. He definitely thickened my skin and lessened my vulnerability to like love, to giving of myself, the whole sexual everything. Like when we talk about like learning about our bodies and all that kind of stuff, this might be TMI, but I would refuse to even make a noise because I felt like if that gave a man any more pleasure, I couldn't give myself like that to him because of how I had been hurt in that first relationship. So I felt like even giving a sound would heighten him in some type of way. So I do understand that more about myself now. And that lessened my experience. You know what I'm saying? That lessened my freedom from not being able to speak and move and do a certain way because I was hurt at my 13-year-old self that carried on to further relationships, you know? And again, I don't even blame him. He was a baby at the time. He was still gaining a sense of understanding and learning that he was cute, you know, all this stuff, getting some attention probably he had never gotten before. So I understand more now, but I did not understand then.
Yeah.
Yes,
Before
go
you,
ahead.
Josh
I'm
had his
sorry.
hand.
all right. So listen, I thought about it more and more, and so physically it opened me up. Sexually, it opened me up to like, okay, I was feeling these ways. I went through puberty, and then 16 or 15, 16, I have a girlfriend, and then, you know, I'm loyal. I'm very like, You know, I'm all head over heels for her, just like in love, just, oh my God, the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm gonna marry this girl. And then we have sex. And then it's just amazing. And then we just keep doing it because I'm just, you know, a hormonal, you know, teenager. And then, you know, a year passes and we're still, you know, we get caught up, you know, in, you know, little issues with our parents and things like that, sneaking around. But excuse me, I decided as I was preparing to go to college, I was like, hold on, I only ever been with one person, and I know, like, I don't really look at her the way that I used to, like, or I really do, but I gotta go see, like, it's some other stuff out there I gotta go see real quick, like, so I'm about to go. I know I'm gonna go, so I kind of need to get prepared. So then I started hoeing. Like, this is like my last semester before college. Like, I just started, like, that's when I started sneaking around and lying and getting caught up and lie after lie after lie, or just like, no, that's not what happened, or no. You know, but I was actually trying to explore myself and explore people in the process to help me become more comfortable in myself so that when the situations did occur, I felt macho. I felt comfortable. I didn't feel less than, you know. So to be more transparent, it opened me up. I mean, she was a young lady that really was just so loving, so giving me, you know, the best. Excuse me, I can't even speak. An amazing woman, young lady really was taught how to be a wife and taught how to be, you know, a mother, and that image has stayed with me. You know, let's say, and I've kind of used that to kind of gauge and things like that. However, it opened me up. So had I not had sex and we just stayed in a relationship, it would be different. I would be totally different. But it really opened me up because then I was really like, well, let's get ready. Let's get prepared. You know, I was coming into manhood. You know, this is what I felt.
Yeah.
From being taught certain things, like you're supposed to, you know, you only what, one girl. Like, yeah, I'm 16. You know.
Wow.
But
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's why we needed you on here too, because I personally needed that male lens too. So were you told anything prior to this experience? Was sex discussed with you by parents, family members, and like if so, you know, what were you told? And it's going to be two parts. What were you told, if you were told anything? And then at what age, Tameka, you've already shared it, like, did they learn that you were sexually active?
First, if y'all hear my dog barking, just let me know and I will get up and shut the door because he's going off because there's somebody delivering a package outside. Okay. So that's why I muted it. But I was just always told, no, don't do it. There was no discussion. Like I said, I learned it from friends. I learned it from older friends. Like I had a babysitter that would talk to me. You know, I was the child who I spent the night with some family member or friends of family members, and their kids were older. So it wasn't anything bad that they were telling me. It was like God used them to prepare me for what I needed to know. Because my mother, she didn't tell me anything other than just don't do it. From the time that I started my cycle, my period, it was, where are you going? What are you doing? Because she was so afraid. And I could never understood why until maybe about 10 years ago. Because of her own trauma, she was pushing it off on me. And, you know, that's not something that I want to share here about what her trauma was, but I understand it. I couldn't understand it then. So I made a vow that I would talk to my children as much as they would allow me to speak to them. Because if I mention sex to them, they're like, Mom, you know, but it's real talk. So with my experience with him, when she found out and I shared it, is this what you want me to get a talk about what I shared in the beginning when you said
no, you don't have to share because you already shared.
Okay. So, you know, so I don't, I don't have any regrets whatsoever. I just wish if I had to give a message to any parent, I don't care how old you are, that's a subject, that's a topic that should be taught at home. You know, it should be taught at home, because if it's a safe home, let me say it that way.
Yeah.
You know, because there's so much out here. When I was growing up, I was born in '69, so it was forbidden. You don't. We didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it at all. But now we have so much out there. The kids have so much available to them, where, like I said, I didn't have an orgasm until I was having sex at 15. I didn't have an orgasm until I was 18. And there's some of these young girls that taught me some things, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm not whoa as in it's a bad thing. It's like, thank you. But it's right, for real, because
I get it.
Learning certain things, it's like, wow, and just I had a coach of mine, because I have several different coaches for different things, and she told me a long time ago, she said, you're going to teach young ladies how to enjoy their significant others in the bedroom, and then I do that because of my own experiences and not being taught.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Josh, Yolanda.
No, my mom was here.
Josh.
Honestly though, I don't think my mom and I, we have talked about sex. It was more of like, let me go backwards though. For her mom really was like, don't do it. No. Well, why? Because I said so. The God said no. Bible, no. Don't ask. So, but my mom had me at 16 because of, not because of that, but because of the curiosity of the no's, and because of the experiences, and everybody's doing it, but you're just telling me no, but why? So, I heard through the story of my mom speaking about why her mom just said no and what she learned from that. And so that kind of is how we went into those conversations of like, you got to be careful, you got to be protected, but more so on my dad's side, like what you were saying, Tameka, it has to be it should be taught at home, but really at a safe home. And not that my dad's home wasn't safe. I'm not saying that. It was just more open, more free, more like, I seen a lot of stuff. I seen a lot of women. So what I was being taught at a different home was more of like, you better get it. Like, you're gonna have to get it one day, or this is what a man does.
Yeah.
And so I got the best. I got the best of both worlds. I got, we're protected, we're safe, But hey, I'm gonna teach you about and I'm seeing it, and I'm watching, and I'm learning, and I'm gonna just leave it there.
Okay.
I'm gonna just yeah.
Good. Yeah, you guys sound like you got a balanced perspective.
Yeah.
Of it, and yeah, different ways, but sounds balanced. Yeah. And I love how you honored your parents in that, in the way that that's the way that they knew, and that's what we have to know. Like, even for myself, I feel like my parents did the best they could with the knowledge that they had. I didn't feel like there was any ill intent, that they were trying to do anything to misdirect me. I felt like it was pure intention. So I'll make that clear even when I share my parts. But you, Yolanda?
Okay, funny. So we had sexual education classes, right? Sex ed in school. So I think ours was early, third or fourth, but I know definitely fourth. So I remember being so excited. So I'm that kid that will challenge a parent and just say whatever, as long as I'm not cursing. So I remember when I first took the class and I went home, I was like, hey, mommy, it's called vagina, not pussy. So why do you guys say pussy? So I was that kid, right? And we would talk about it, and and she would tell me, if you feel like you want to have sex, let me know. We need to take you to the clinic. You know, you need to get condoms and certain things like that. Not in the 4th grade, but, you know, as I got older, we would openly have those conversations. And I let her know, you know, at that time. So we talked about it, because touching in my family was more discussed, that people shouldn't touch you in inappropriate places and certain things should happen. But the sex conversations, I drove those from the sex ed, because when I was even in elementary school, you would hear about, and this is no offense to white people, the little white girls talking about sucking penises, and I'm like, ooh, you guys do that? Like, why are you doing that? Because it was like a more of a white girl thing and not more of a black girl thing. You just heard that for
No,
outright in
that's a good point, because it was the same in the school that I attended at the time, middle school and high school. They were predominantly white high schools, and that was an association with that. And anything dealing with oral sex was like, if there was a spectrum of like Hodem, that was like top hoe. You know what I'm saying? If that came out about that. And I actually feel sorry for that girl now. Like, whoever she is, and whenever that information came out about her, like, I think about the multiple ones that I heard about, like, gosh, she was top hoe at that time. And that was just so mean, you know? It was absolutely mean. But I remember, and of course I wasn't sharing the stories, but I do remember thinking, ooh, she did that, you know? And that is so interesting. I'm fast forwarding a little bit. There was a time, now this is the only conversation that I had with my mom about sex at a younger age. I had a friend who was really dear to me, that there was a whole rumor around that she went down on somebody. We went to her and we asked her about, did you do it? Because I wanted to protect her. And she denied it, but the guy said she did it. We all knew she did it. Like, we knew she did it. So I went to my mom because I wanted to protect my friend. And I was like, it was her and my aunties. And that's the story with my family. Like, the aunties are always around. They are my mom village. But I remember going to my mom. We were all in the living room, 3 aunties, probably some of my mom's friends. But I was like, I have a question, really, really innocent. And I think I might have been about 15 at the time. I asked my mom, I was like, have you ever gave someone head? Let me tell you, I was just laughing because it almost knocked the wind out of my mom. When I asked her, but it was a really innocent conversation, because again, I'm thinking I'm protecting my friend. And my mom paused and her eyes got so big, and then she just bursted out laughing, and then her and my aunts all started slapping 5s. So my aunt, who is she is very pronounced. She doesn't care about hiding anything. She's like, hell yeah, you know what? She was going in, and I am innocent, so I have no understanding of this. But my mom composed herself. She got it together real quick, and she was like, yes, I have. Like, she went straight into mom mode, and she was like, I just want to know why you're asking this question. And then we actually had like a room conversation about pleasure and what it means to like please a man and please like because at that time she did know that I was having sex, and well, at that time actually I had stopped, and I'm going to go into that in just a second. But that was the first time she actually had an active conversation. I don't know if she remembers that, but there was a room of mothering that we talked about this at the time. And that, I'll never forget that experience. But I did ask, and it was very innocent when I asked. And then it made me look at it different after that. You know, it was something I still wasn't really willing to engage in at that age, because there was such a stigma that was attached to it. But the conversation helped change my perspective of people who I knew were doing it, you know? And so for me, even though I started at 13, my mom found out when I was 14. And one of my cousins had gotten caught. And because she was kind of noted as being the fast one, and I was the good one, but I felt like she was trying to deflect. And so she told on me and was like, well, y'all basically like, y'all think, I'm the one, but she the one getting it in, and so I come home, I've achieved this like big award from school for good grades and stuff, but my mom is looking at me disappointed. And instead of talking to me, she writes me a letter telling me how it's hurting me right now to even think about that. She writes me a letter telling me how hurt and disappointed she is in me instead of having a conversation with me. And so this bright-eyed mom who sees me as a stellar person is now not wanting to even look at me. So she's kind of looking at me with disgust. And I was so hurt by that because I was definitely not the child who needed to be like spanked or hit or anything like that. Just my mom's aura and her look, and I remember I was kind of talking to you about that with Jordan, like his level of sensitivity. Like, yeah. I don't need to be hit. I can, if I feel you and I feel disappointment, that's punishment enough. And so instead of talking to me about it, which was the way that she learned, so I understood that, she called my dad. And my dad lives in a different state. So that kind of was like, if I was like out of character or something, it was like, I'm going to call your dad. I'm going to tell your dad. And I was like, oh no, like I did something really, really bad, And so, my dad gets on the phone and I am crying because I'm like, I may have to go live with him, even though that wasn't horrible, but leaving family and friends and what was familiar to me, I'm thinking it's like this major punishment. But my dad actually redirected in a way that I never would have guessed. He asked me, he said, well, I've heard about your experience. And I said, okay. And so he's like, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And I don't think they were questions that he even expected me to answer. He just was asking questions. So he was like, did he hold your hand? Did he take you to a nice space that was clean and that was somewhere that was memorable for the both of you? He was like, did he lay you down gently? Did he caress you? He was asking me all this stuff about, basically, he was asking me questions that were the experience of lovemaking. And I couldn't answer yes to any of them. Even though he wasn't expecting the answer, in my mind, it was just like, no, to everything that he had said. And like, was you happy with it? Was you, and I just was on the phone crying. But after my dad went through that, and he told me that at the end, he said, if you answer no to any of these questions, he said, you don't got to answer me, but if you answer no to any of these questions, that man did not make love to you. And he said, I would never tell you that love making is not a beautiful experience. He said, it's probably one of the most beautiful experiences that you will have in your entire life when you're ready. And it doesn't sound, he said, if you didn't say yes to these and that young man and you were not ready. And he said, and if you didn't know to ask for what it is that you desired, y'all wasn't ready. And so he said, and my baby, my queen, my princess deserves to be made love to. Do you know that stopped me? I stopped. And that became my prototype for lovemaking. And so I knew that if I wasn't getting this series of things that I remember my dad saying, if I wasn't getting that, I wasn't doing it. And so for years, I just did it because I remembered what my dad said. So, and then my mom told my godmother. Now, my godmother was a huge part of my village. She since has passed away. And so my godmother is very direct, very, very blunt. So for lack of better terms, I go to the house as soon as I walk in. She was like, when I walked in, I'm like, oh Lord, I'm ashamed. And so she was like, I heard you've been effing. They have to work. And I'm sad because I'm thinking she's going to be disappointed. So she asked me, she said, did you have an orgasm? And I was like, I didn't even know what one was. Had never even heard of it. And so I'm I'm not responding. She's like, did you have an orgasm? And I was like, I don't know. And she said, I know you didn't have an orgasm, because if you had one, then you would know you had. Then you would know you had one. And she said, and that's why you don't need to be having sex, because you don't even know what you like. You didn't even get the satisfaction that you were supposed to get, but I bet he got it. And those conversations probably happened a day apart with my dad and my godmother. So those became like the staples of how I viewed, like, my expectations of what the experience was supposed to be like. And I just stopped. So that kind of led to our little breakup, you know, after that, even though the guy was kind of still around, but I wasn't going to do it because he wasn't doing that. And he didn't know what to do. And I, at the time, wasn't patient enough, because even when I was trying to talk to him about it, he didn't. But that was my learning experience, as far as like family is concerned. But I was, after that, more open to talking about it with my parents. My mom started opening up a little bit more after that, and my dad started opening up a little bit more when it came to talking. And now, like, you know, we're real fluid when it comes to conversations about that. But those experiences, those conversations were real big staples for me. So I know I have been a part of coming of age communities. Like when my friends' daughters have had their cycles come, we have had like a collection of women come around to talk about these experiences, so they're aware, and have been very honest about the good and the bad, and allowed like the young lady to share in any way that she could say, yes, I want my mommy here, I don't want my mommy here, so that I could be open about having this conversation. So this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to have this live, for maybe those people who are not having these conversations, to help them know about it, or to unveil a little bit better. Anybody want to add anything on to that before I go on to the next question?
I do. I want to talk about from the church's perspective, because
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And to interject too, I did grow up in the church too.
Okay.
So I will say that a lot of my self-punishment was church too.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love my foundation, still love church. So let me just say that, but there was some punishment that I gave myself so thank you for even bringing that up. But go ahead. I'm sorry for interjecting.
You know, they always say don't, because the Bible says don't.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't. For those of that you that know me, that you know, I'm not a traditional holy roller minister. And at the end of the day, I just let God lead me where I'm supposed to be led, and who I'm supposed to talk to, and meet them where they are. A lot of times, let me say it this way: holy rollers don't know how to do that. And there's a difference between somebody who really loves God and somebody who's a holy roller and just talks about condemnation. So, you know, in the church they say don't, because you're supposed to be married. But in the church they also condemn. And I remember being sitting in the church, because this is just maybe about 15 years ago. So sitting in the church, and a young lady had come in, and I think this young lady was 30 something years old. And she was a newlywed, and she was married, and she was a virgin when she got married. The church praised her. And I'm not saying that this was a bad woman or whatever, but they praised her because she remained a virgin. Those that don't, you know, that is the biggest place where you see the most single mothers, because you push don't, and you don't share why. And you don't share it in a loving way like your dad did.
Yeah.
It's just don't be fast, don't be whorish. And this is why sometimes our children don't come to us, because they listen to the conversations that we have about other people's children, whether it be that they're having sex, whether it be that they're gay, they're fast, whatever the case may be. So they don't have a safe place. So I want to talk from a biblical perspective, because when you talked about the giving the oral sex or the blowjobs, you know, the church that I was a part of, they taught us that oral sex was a sin.
Mm-hmm.
And I believed that for a long time. So this is my second marriage. Okay. So for my first marriage, I was taught we don't do that. I remember watching a pastor get up in front of his whole church, and he had what would be considered like a mega church here in Charlotte, and apologize to his wife for performing oral sex. And then one day, this is why when you have somebody who tells you better read the Bible for yourself, you better have a relationship with God so that you can get understanding, because one of the scriptures says, in all you're getting, meaning I don't care how wealthy you are, I don't care what your title is, I don't care what your financial status is, any of that, you better get understanding. So in that very Bible, it states that Solomon, and we learned this at a women's conference, and when you read it for yourself in the Song of Solomon, it says Solomon licked her entire body. Basically what he was saying was enjoy one another. It is supposed, and I guess the church or people make it feel like, you shouldn't have sex. And this is why a lot of women in the church, your husbands cheat on you, because you're just, I'm not supposed to enjoy this.
Okay.
So what you're not doing, somebody else is going to do, and then you're mad. I'm not saying that it's right for anybody to cheat on anybody.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is, don't be stuck in your religion and your traditions that have absolutely nothing to do with God and everything to do with you being faithful to the person who stands in the pulpit and to the people who you sit in fellowship with week after week after week. And your home is dry. Your bed, you ain't having no fun, because that's why God created it. He created it for you to be able to multiply, but he also created it for you to enjoy one another. So now with my now husband, baby, you better believe, because that's why I teach people all the time. And I'm not one to tell people don't do it because you're not married. That's your own convictions, not condemnation, but your own convictions. So if this is something that you're doing, and anybody who wants to come and talk to me later, you're more than welcome to. We'll give how we can be reached later. But at the end of the day, this is something that God created. And I will say this too, when we talk about the orgasms. The orgasm releases the endorphins. This is why you see, and no disrespect, but this is the only thing that I have to compare it to. This is why when you see the nuns that's mean in the Catholic Church and they want to beat you with the ruler and stuff, they clogged up. You see that old lady in the church that's mean and nasty? She ain't got nobody laying next to her. And that's why she's mean and nasty. That's just the truth. So, I mean, I have to put that out there, because we feel like, it's such a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. Doing it prematurely or having a bad sexual experience because, like you said, your first time may not be right, or that somebody forced you, whether it was an act of rape or molestation of some sort, those things, you seek counseling for. They come to try to make you not want to desire somebody. But this is why we were created, to desire one another. And I'm going to put this out here too, because I feel led to say it. Even if you are in a same sex relationship, if you are male and male and female, enjoy one another. Because I know what the church says as far as not knowing what the Bible says, what the real Bible says. So you out here putting yourself in a place of not conviction, but condemnation, because you're listening to them, and them are the ones that's getting it behind closed doors, and they happy, and they released, and they're not clogged up, and you are waiting because they're telling you not to. So I'm gonna say it that way. And if you, like I said, if you want to have a conversation with me after this, whoever's watching this, I'm more than willing to talk to you.
All right. Well, I hope somebody got free.
I just wanted to ask a quick thing about the house.
Yeah, I appreciate, like I said, we need all the perspectives. Yolanda, do you still got to go? Okay.
Yes, okay, I was patiently waiting.
I was looking at the time. Yolanda had already told me ahead of time that she had to get off at a little bit early. So we're going to go through, me, you, and Josh, Tameka. We're going to go through these last 3 questions together. And thank you so much, Yolanda, for always doing what you do. And
thank you, Yolanda.
Sharing your heart and your truth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Bye. So my next question is, what do you think, and Tameka, you already went kind of into this a little bit. What do you think are some misconceptions about sex that you had to unlearn about sexual experiences?
Well, I would tie it to who's supposed to teach you. Number one, we're kind of dibbling on that a little bit. Like the parents, yes, the parents should be, as long as they know how to teach, as long as they were taught to teach. However, it's a full scope. Like you have home, you have the school, and you have the community. Like the school, Yolanda was saying, like the school, we have classes and courses where, they teach us about, your sexual organs, your body, and your hormones and things like that. But the kids, your child is playing with it. But at home, you can really, be more personal, be more down to earth with it and things like that. But I think what we're missing is in the community right now, we overexpose our children to sex. Like act, but sex in general as like a category. And like my 7-year-old could get on his phone and see butt anywhere. Like if I don't send the phone. Like my somebody was saying like, oh, it's middle school is having sex now. Yeah, everybody is having sex because it's so easily accessible versus being taught, or like we're not educating on like we're not educating on what could happen and how to, protect yourself more than just say, hey, buy a condom. Or hey, get a plan B. But think about the responsibilities. Like that's the number one. Like when you have sex, like if you're not protected or you don't know how to control yourself, like you were saying, Ayisha, you don't know your body, you don't know yourself, you're gonna end up getting somebody pregnant. Then now you have more responsibility just because of immaturity in mentality and physicality. But I think we do it in the house and we're figuring that out, but we need to do more. They do it in the school, but they don't do it in all school systems. But we have to figure out better ways to, speak on it freely and not be so judgmental. Because I ain't gonna lie, we all judgmental about it. We're all like different like ways that we speak and think about sex, like not dimming it so much and convicting people for like, damn, you did it young. Okay, well they did it young. That's their experience. They had to experience it like that. But yeah, no, I just wanted to add that little part.
I definitely appreciate that. Tameka, did you want to add anything about misconceptions, things that you had to unlearn?
I definitely had to unlearn that, and I want to say this, to each its own. So if you, like I said, if you are, if you're one of those that decides that you want to remain either a virgin or you've had sex and then you don't want to do it anymore until you find your mate, then that's good for you. I did everything the church told me to do, and it was horrible. And I will say it this way. It wasn't that my ex-husband was a horrible person. It was feeling like, because when I met him, I had already had 4 children, so we had our own child together. So I felt like life would have been better because now I have a child in wedlock, okay? And our relationship, our marriage, because God was going to bless the union even more, that it was going to be so much better than what I had experienced previously. And that was so far from the truth, because he had his issues and I had my issues. So, and I'm not even talking about the issues as far as sex is concerned. I'm talking about just issues that you bring into a relationship that is not dealt with. So once I divorced, I was done. Being that holy roller that I still was at that time, I was never going to get married again. I was never going to have sex again. I was going to be a eunuch for the Lord. And I didn't know that eunuchs were men. This is how uneducated I was. And then I met my now husband. Okay. So it was my experience with him and him loving me through all of the misconceptions of what the church told me, and me being with him and me living with him before marriage and all that other stuff. And, like I said, if people can do that, if that's what you desire, let me say it that way. If that's what you desire, that's fine. But do not condemn those that don't follow the way that you feel like they should follow. Because it's not your life. And then how dare you look down on somebody? Because there is something that you may do that has nothing to do with sex, but people can look down and condemn you, or that you are condemning yourself for.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's about who you love. And I want to touch on this too, because I feel led to, because I have a feeling that the right people will see this. I'll go back to the LGBT plus community. You love who you're supposed to love. And if you don't agree with that, you have that right, but you don't have a right to beat up on somebody because they don't love like you love. So that's whether it's heterosexual or part of the LGBTQ plus community. So that is the misconceptions around sex altogether. You don't have to join in that bedroom with them. It's between them, whoever's there, and God. That's it.
Yeah.
So basically what I'm saying is, if you don't have anything good to offer in a loving and kind way, and don't be like, oh Lord, I'm going to be praying for you because you're doing this out of the will of God. The Bible has been misconstrued in so many different ways. And I know a lot of people are not going to believe this, but I have my own personal experience with God. This is why I say you gotta have your own personal experience. I mean, your own personal relationship with God. Because if you don't, you'll be spinning out of control, listening and trying to do or wear these badges that they give you if you do certain things in this order. Because I did it opposite of what they told me to do, and that was the most beautiful. This has been the most beautiful experience that I have ever had in my years of living. So that's my thing. Yeah.
Now, one thing that I actually do teach now is,
Okay.
and non-hypocritically, it's a thin line. But what I teach to people that do share, like they haven't had sex yet, like, well, save yourself. Like, don't share. This is what to me, because of energetically, what I learned and how you share. You give and you pull, and you push and you pull. You take in so much shit that you don't have to. So I learned, that was a misconception I had to learn. Like, you better get it. You better experience. You better know what you want before you get married. You know. So I had to learn, like, whoa. Save yourself. Because, you know, save yourself before you wreck yourself. See, for me, I was on the other end. I was wrecking myself. I was throwing out, hey. So I had to learn the hard way, like, hey, wait. So for those, I have students that share with me, a drum major for years. He's still one. He's probably 24, 25 years old. And there's been times me as the coach being like, well, are you gay, or are you everything all right? Did you know, me putting judgment on him. But what I loved about him most is that he was secure in himself enough to still not, no matter what I said or tried to convince him, or he still has remained true to himself and safe based on everybody else's experiences around him. He's learned to protect himself. That's what he's learned, right? Like, he's seen all the hurt. My best friend, this other best friend, my mom, my dad, you know, he's seen the hurt. And so for him, he's learned I learned from my experiences. And I mean, my experiences first. I don't always have to experience that. So for now, me, I'm like, it might look good, but it don't mean it always tastes good. It's like, so, and it might not feel good.
Yeah.
When I say feel good, the after effects, like you got to deal with the boot, like, so no, like until you're mature enough with somebody that you want to share yourself with them, like enough that's like you're not splitting your energy in so many different places, and then people taking it going somewhere else with your stuff, you know. So I learned the misconception for me was like, and I was taught save yourself, but now I know, like, save yourself for that one, save yourself for like who you're comfortable, safe, loving, protect energy, that energy field that y'all create, that's one, that's just love, you know, versus chaos, versus so
yeah.
I just want to
thank you for that too. Again, I keep coming from this male perspective too, because I did have a conversation with another friend who is a man, and a lot of his views were a little bit different from yours. He was coming from the direction of, like, just get out there. You got to taste the milk before you buy it. Like, just totally celebrated very much that he started having sex at 9 and was like very jovial about it. And I'm not saying that was his experience, and he's still happy about his experience. But it's just different, you know, to hear it from another man. So I do appreciate you saying what you're saying. I know for me, the thing that I probably like a misconception was that not doing doesn't make me approved. Because I can remember being that young of an age and being made to feel like not doing it was something bad. You know, it wasn't in the area that I was in, it wasn't celebrated. It might have been celebrated by the elders, but the younger people, it was not celebrated. So for me, it kind of gave me permission to go ahead and do, because like I said, the curiosity was there. But I will say that in my older years, I have taken time off to like reevaluate, to get to know myself more, to cleanse, detox, to like redirect myself to understand what to rid myself of the attachments. Because there were times that I was finding myself like, even though I did not want to be with the person, but because the sex was so good, I was still craving that person. You know what I'm saying? And so there were periods, and then sometimes I use it to numb myself too. So there were times where I didn't take a break, and then I just jumped right into something with somebody else, thinking that was going to help me get over somebody else. And it didn't help. Like in some aspects, I took out what happened in my last relationship into the new relationship because I didn't take time to heal from the past one and those, you know, the sexual residual energy that was there. And then there were comparisons that were made that weren't right. You know what I'm saying? So I realized that taking a break was important for me. So I would probably say the misconception was, because even now that I'm older, and this is probably TMI, like I am now divorced. I probably haven't had but I hope this helps somebody. I probably haven't had sex in almost 3 years now, but that's been very intentional. I'm not saying I don't want it. I'm not saying I don't get the urge. I'm not saying I still don't love it, that I don't crave it. It's there. But it is. It's right there. But I did feel like I needed time to take a break to understand myself more before I jumped into something else with somebody else. It was also very important to me, and I'm not saying that this has to be everybody's way, but I felt like it was important to me to preserve myself for the next person because I desire a relationship. Everybody doesn't desire a relationship. Right. And so that's okay too. If you're in, for me anyways, if you're in a phase of like exploratory years and you made that decision and you have an understanding with the person, because I think communication is important too. So if there's a true understanding there, then do it. But I personally felt like I wasn't in a space to just jump out there. And so I had to take some time and do some reflection. And I have been told, you know, by friends and family, girl, just get out there, just get it, you know, have some fun, explore and do all these. I know myself, and that's another part, knowing yourself. Because I am where I am right now, I felt like I wouldn't feel good about it after. It might feel good in the midst of it, but I just didn't feel like I would feel good about like the after effects. And it is, and I will say this, just because I made a decision doesn't mean it's not a fight. I still fight with that sexual energy. And I'm not talking about, you know, every couple of months. Sometimes I fight with it minute by minute. You know what I'm saying? Like, I literally have to get up if I'm in a situation and say, all right, hold it together. Let me go. Ayisha, get up and go wash your hands real quick because something about to jump. Something is about to jump off right now if you stay right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it is still, I haven't, you know, God bless it. If you're there and you don't feel it, I feel it every single day, you know? And so, but yeah, I did make a conscious decision to wait on love again. So, and that is just, you know, where I am. So the misconception for me, and the misconception for me too, was that because I had another period where it was like a 3-year period where I didn't have sex, and I did have a man. It wasn't a couple of them, it was just one who said, good luck, no one's going to stick around with you if you're not doing it. And that is just not true. I had some amazing men who still chose to court me, who still chose to date me. And I put that out there at the very beginning. I just want you to know that I'm in a space right now where that is not a priority for me. And we would have a discussion about it. And I would like to know, my organs are healthy. I want this, but I'm not. I want to say that what I'm giving to you is for you, and that you are special enough that I want to like wait for you. And so I can't say that I'm at a space where I'm going to wait for marriage, but I do want to wait for love and something special. So I was told that people wouldn't wait, and that again, I'm a prude. You just got to get out there. You got to jump. You got to explore. This is the way that you'll reawaken yourself. I don't got to reawaken myself with anything. My sex drive is still up. It ain't awakened by nobody. Okay, it is there daily, all day. So I would say that is the misconception too, and that you have to do something with that energy. That energy can be unveiled in other different ways. So that is also a misconception, that you have to have sex to alleviate that. I have had to learn other things to do. I've had to learn to work out. I've had to learn to go for a walk. I've had to learn to call a friend and pray. I've had to learn to like do breathing exercise. There's other things that I've had to learn to calm that energy down, and it didn't have to be sex. And again, if you relieve yourself by just doing it, no judgment. I'm just not in that space right now. So those are things that misconceptions and things that I probably had to learn for myself. So next question is, do you feel like the sexual engagement and your learning and the experiences, and I think we kind of talked about it, is different for men and women?
Absolutely.
Wait, is it different?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like the way that we learn about it, the things that we talk about, the expectations, the conversations that are had, all of that.
Yeah, I say definitely, because of double standards. You know, one time my husband and I was talking, we were sharing. I said, what if, our kids are grown, so, but I was like, well, what if, our 19-year-old son was with, a 30-year-old woman? And he joked, and he was like, I would tell him, you better not tell you better not tell your mama, but I know you enjoyed yourself. And I said, well, what if it was the other way around? And then he'd be like, where is he? What if it was one of our daughters? He'd be like, where is he? I'm coming after him, and it's so many double standards when it comes down to men having sex opposed to women having sex. Like, men get badges of honor, if they have so many different multiple partners outside of cheating. Let me say it that way. Let's put it that way. And then women are looked at as whores and sluts if they do the same thing. Now, men or women, if we are spiritual beings in a human body, experiencing this life from a human's perspective. But if everybody can't just be sleeping with everybody, because you pick up their stuff, especially if you are connected spiritually. You know, I've had friends who, one of my good friends from years ago, she was going through a divorce and her husband had left her and was sleeping with somebody else. And I told her from a spiritualist perspective, I said, I know the church will tell you that that is still your husband and you have the right to sleep with him because y'all are still legally married. I said, but I wouldn't sleep with him if I were you. And she said, I understand. And I told her, I said, from a spiritual perspective. Well, she did, and there was no judgment or anything because I understand that sometimes we have needs and desires, and she felt like that's what she wanted and needed at the time to release that pressure that you talk about. And she was fine with it, but then there were things that she was picking up, like, for instance, this young lady, and I'm not saying it's bad to curse, because if you piss me off enough, you'll get you'll get cussed out. Yes, as a minister, and a lot of, I'm going to be as transparent and as I can be, because a lot of them do, but they just, and if you don't, then that's great. But she wasn't one to cuss. And she started cussing, and her husband at the time, he would cuss all the time. And she said, this is not me. Not saying her cussing was a bad thing, but she was like, I don't even like this. And she said, you were right. I shouldn't be sleeping with him because I pick up certain things from him. So it's a lot of double standards out there. It's too much. If you're a woman who you feel like you can hit it and quit it, you better go talk to some of your friends. Because you pick up certain things and you start acting certain ways, and you can't figure out why you're picking up these negative attributes. And it works the other way around too, because there's certain things that were good that I have picked up from my husband from that way as well. So it's not just one-sided, but just be mindful, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
You look like a professor with those glasses hanging.
nowadays, boys are scared. These women is bold. All right, that's it used to be the dudes. We just out here like dogs, but now the newer generations that are up and coming. Let's say the generations younger than y'all. All right, they playing video games all the time. All right, they not going outside, not exploring. They online. They not really people in. So when it comes to talking to one another, getting to know personalities and how to communicate with the opposite sex, they don't know how to. And it's a disabling thing.
Wow.
So it's enabling the women to be like, hey, hold on, what's going on? Hey, and so I see that in my generation and down, and the older women though. I ain't gonna lie, some of y'all be like, them cougars, y'all be coming hard. So, you know, young people like me, we, how do I say it? Self-control. I'm gonna just use the word of self-control. We all have it. So it is a double standard. And I honestly don't know how we can start to look at it differently. At this moment, because it is what it is, but it is the stigma that it is. It's like, if a woman does it, she's a whore, but a man does it, he's a king. But for me, I called myself a whore after a while. Not now. I was like, damn, I kind of am a hoe. Or yeah, now I look at it like, yeah, I was hoeing. I was out there doing a lot. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff I didn't necessarily need to, but I felt like I did. Like I really felt like, even there was times where I was like, oh, there's more in my system. I was engaged in a point in my life, and I was not faithful. I was a man. Let me not say that. Just being a man. I was exploring out here. I was just freeing myself, and I was exploring sexually, like my, what I wanted. And I was not being honest. I wasn't being transparent. I wasn't being the most loving at all. I was just really I needed, and because I wasn't getting it in my home, I decided to get it where I needed to get it.
Gotcha.
Because and it was easier, it was less stress, it was, and then let's just say I kept feeling like I just got to get a few more. I just got to get a little bit more out. I just got to hit. I had to be a little bit more transparent. Men out here, we be having goals. Okay? So, no, I'm serious. Like I learned at a young age a very high number, a very, very, very high number, of my dad. And I was like, what? I know what I seen, but, and you clean, I used to be like, and you good?
Wow.
But that's why that's what it got in my head of like, Oh, a number. Okay. Well, that's a lot. How the hell am I gonna get there? Well, at least I could get a little bit, but I was experiencing and learning. So I did get to a number to where I'm not gonna share it, but it wasn't healthy. Physically, spiritually, now emotionally, like you're saying, Ayisha, we dealing with, because I took the time for myself out of a relationship versus getting right into one, and without having sex as a man, which is like not a thing most times. Like I had to choose that because I was tired of going through the same lessons. Like I'm tired. Like I do want a wife in my life. I do. I don't want to keep being this. I don't want to keep being a liar. So in my last relationship, that's why I stopped. Because I was
Wow.
I was hurting because of how much pain I was causing somebody else, and I kept lying, and that was not truthful. That's not good character. It didn't feel good to lay down at night and be like, damn, somebody really across the country is believing that I'm disloyal, and I'm not. I'm not who I say I am to be. That's horrible.
Yeah.
And there's so many of us out, so many people out here that's like just fraud. So even my mom, if she's still on here, she told me, like, she questioned me one day, because I was singing at churches and things like that, a worship leader, minister of music, doing all this, life coach online. And she's like, but behind closed doors, you different. Well, how you talk is different. And to me, it's the same thing. All I'm doing is having sex on the side, and that was to me. But it was the dishonesty. It was the not truthfulness. It was the unalignment, not being in alignment with my truest self. If I'm preaching something, teaching something, it needs to be in alignment with who I am and who I claim to be versus who I portray myself to be. So I had to let go of what I wanted people to view of me and really say, hey, what do I want for myself? The last person I remember of who I was when I was in high school, before I actually started sharing myself. So I had to cut out all this stuff so I could get back to remembering how I used to think, how I used to move. And because I don't want to be 40 years old, 35 years old. I don't want to be out here 50, 60, single. I done had 12 kids, but I ain't with nobody, mama. I got all this. I don't want no bull. I want a good life. So I'm going to learn. I'm going to move different. And you ain't got to do this all your life. We got 45-year-olds, 60-year. Why y'all still doing the same stuff? Like, to make progress, we got to learn. But, I mean, not just learn, apply the learning. And, so long story short, I would.
No, that is so good. You just reignited. This is going off the question, but that was another reason why I felt like I had to stop, reset, do a detox, because I felt like I was repeating lessons. Apparently I wasn't learning them. So I'm recycling. I'm dating the same person in a different phase. It's it's all same situations. And instead of pointing fingers and blaming, I realized I had to take personal accountability for what I was attracting. So I was like, it's time for you to heal. You need to really take some time for yourself. Stop pointing fingers. Deal with some pain that you have. Because even that, I've said this before too, based off of where I am in my spiritual healing journey, I could tell you where I am based off of who I'm talking to. It shows up in who I dated. And it shows up also in the people that are rejected too, because there are times where there was like amazing people and I couldn't see them because I was blinded by something else. And then I look back in hindsight and some people say I have no regrets. I do. And I am apologetic sometimes for the way that I treated people or dismissed people or overlooked or undervalued people based off of where I was in that particular healing journey. So I was like, you know what, Screech, stop, because you're not there, you're not clear where you are. You need to pause before you have some type of engagement with somebody. And the same thing that you and Tameka kind of said the same thing, Josh. I did find that I was picking up characteristics from people. And so if there were some things that I was like, why did you just lash out like that? Or why did you just you don't even eat that? Like, why are you even getting cravings for this certain thing? And it was because I had attached, I mean, literally, and it wasn't even anything that anybody had to tell me. It was like I got a pure epiphany from God, and it was like, oh, you know, that's John Doe, and that's James Doe, and that's where you pick that up, you know? And so again, I had to learn to cleanse myself of that, because I did feel like there was a veil, and I felt like the veil was everybody else, and it was me. I mean, there was literally a time that I looked in the mirror and I couldn't even see my own face, because I was seeing people that I was connected to. Couldn't even see myself. I knew I had to do something different. And so I thank you guys for even bringing this up, because I didn't even consider that even in this conversation. So that soul ties, whether you believe it or not, for me, it's very real.
It is. It is extremely.
Yeah, those connections.
Yeah. I want to add, if you don't mind, I want to add. You know, when Josh was like the Cougars, I hope I can remember the 3 things that I wanted to share real quick. Number 1, women have sex for love. A lot of them. Let me say that. Men have sex for release. So for the woman that is looking for love, you better pay attention. I would pay attention to the man that I'm sleeping with. Does he want me, or is he using me as a trash compactor? Number 2, women reach their prime in their 40s, and men when they're 20s. I don't know why that is, but I will
That's
say
what's going
this
on
too.
with me. Your girl is high in these streets.
So with the women, the reason why most women reach their prime is because they're usually the childbearing years are in the 20s and the 30s, and they're running after their children, and their libido is low. So then the children get older, and they can cook for themselves, they can give themselves a bath, do their homework on their own, and she doesn't have a lot to do for them, so her libido gets higher. And then the man is a lot older, and he can't get enough. He can't keep up with her. Let me say it that way. So you have to be mindful that there's a reason why certain things happen. So then those soul ties that I wanted to touch about, yeah, you pick up certain attributes from people. So if you are a young lady who is looking, let me say this too, because I'm led to say this. If you desire to be with multiple partners, me personally, I don't see anything wrong with that. But if you can't handle it, because you have this stigma of being a whore, whether it be a woman or a man, if that's something that you desire, then you have to be on the same page with the people that you go to. It has to be a mutual thing, okay?
Yeah.
Because the world a whore is someone who just loves sleeping around. Let me say it that way. You know, I had to explain this to my son when he was 11. What's the difference between a whore and a prostitute? And that was at 11. And then I had to explain what a man and a woman do with my 5-year-old in the bedroom, because these are the things that the kids get in school. So if you are not paying attention to your children, then that's your problem. That's a problem that you need to make sure that you help your children to understand. Don't always just tell them don't. But back to if you want to do that, then that's fine for you. But you need to find you somebody that can teach you how to cleanse yourself spiritually. Because as a man, you make deposits all over the place. And as a woman, you're receiving those deposits. And they may not be for you. So if you don't know how to cleanse yourself as the man giving, and you don't know how to cleanse yourself as the woman, and I'm not talking about cleaning with soap and water. I'm talking about spiritually cleansing yourself. This is why a lot of times you shouldn't be doing stuff like this, because then you wind up seeing somebody like us. In the church, we lay hands and cast certain things out, and it's not necessarily demons. And then as a spiritualist, some things have to be elevated and then left because you put yourself in that position. I hope this makes sense for whoever's listening, because it's a lot. We pick up so much. So, you know, please make sure that you know what you're doing before you jump into bed with Susie or Harry. Please.
Be wise. Don't be a spiritual trash can.
That's it.
Don't be a dump.
That's it, Josh.
That's what a lot of us, like, I'm saying us, a lot of people out here, when I'm saying us, I'm talking about men, or hell, there's women out here doing the same thing.
Yes.
But don't be a trash can. Don't be getting dumped on and be like, oh, woe me. Well, oh, me. What you know what you doing? So, and don't be out here crying for help when you be in the help.
Yeah.
So we got to mind ourselves and mind our being, and protect our privates like we used to be told, and because it is private and it's yours, you know, and it's very pure, and at least it should be pure for us. And that's not in a judgmental perspective. You're not pure, so be pure. No, I believe that we should all be pure, do the best that we can be. So we need to cleanse ourselves, cleanse. We need to protect ourselves, protect. We need to pray ourselves up, pray. But yeah, let's go out here and be safe. Let's do better be safe than sorry. So I think we're all on the same page there, definitely with we'd rather be safe than sorry, and not like trying to keep running backwards, you know.
Yeah. And just like you guys are saying, just make sure that you're having honest, clear conversations about what the expectations are. So people aren't getting hurt and people have a clear understanding